thank you everybody for being here. I've really resisted trying to get into the bigger picture of what this whole year has been about for a myriad of reasons. I've tried to keep our team focused and ourselves kind of focused on the day-to-day of a basketball season, to try and enjoy it as best we could, and to just not let maybe the other things distract us. Maybe in hindsight, that's a good thing. It's a bad thing. At the time, I just felt like us immersing ourselves into the game that we love would be either the best distraction from what we were going through, or maybe just the best benefit of what we were going through. So I've really tried to stay away from any of those conversations in our post-game press conferences and my interviews, and tried to make this about as much basketball as I possibly could. I think in the last few days, some things have kind of got towards you guys where those questions are now starting to be asked. And I wanted to make sure that we just got on the same page so that our team could move forward, hopefully put whatever's kind of out there right now behind us, and finish this season as strong as we possibly can. I knew when this journey began that the decisions I make and the way we behaved and how this went down would reverberate for many, many years and impact a lot of people other than ourselves. This was not a zero-sum game. Our actions were going to impact not only our program, but many others here at UNM, a lot of college and high school athletes in and around our state. And this was a tremendous responsibility to me. Our ability or our inability to navigate through this season COVID-free would have significant trickle-down effects on a lot of other people. And I took that seriously. Being cavalier with our protocols or having outbreaks and significant game cancellations would impact many more people other than ourselves. And as a result, our student athletes and our team has lived in the most rigorous bubble anybody could ever imagine. And I did that because I felt it was right, not only for our group, but for a lot of other groups whose eyes were staring solely at us and what we could possibly do with that. Now that's come at a price. Living in a bubble has not been signed off on by a lot of conference commissioners and schools because of their concerns about what it could lead to. And as a witness, I'll tell you that those concerns are valid. Our stringent policies were there for a reason, and they also come with a price. And the mental toll that our guys took living through this to be COVID-free, I think is pretty significant. When the league schedule came out, I believe I got it on November the 19th. I immediately looked at that schedule and went about trying to reschedule and arrange it differently so that our team could adequately get through this year. And obviously, starting with our ability to handle COVID, I looked at our calendar and thought, here are some parts of the schedule that are very concerning to me and our team's well-being. That was not out of the ordinary. Coach K at Duke opted out of their entire non-conference season and gave his team a 22-day window for a break. Our women's team moved games around to give themselves a 14-day break. Coach Wright at Villanova contacted St. John's in a game around the holidays and asked to reschedule it because he thought his players needed a break. All of these scenarios were not COVID outbreaks. They were not necessarily positive tests. They were just coaches looking at their programs thinking, in everything that everybody's going through, our team might need a little bit of a break. So I asked for those same ones. Unfortunately, they haven't been met, and that's not me being critical of anyone or anything. Those decisions were made for those particular reasons. They weren't necessarily in Lobo men's basketball best interest, but I do believe that there were some overriding values towards that I understand those decisions. Unfortunately, it didn't change us and what we were going through. And to have our team go through this whole season mentally trying to stay COVID-free amongst the policies we've had, and now physically trying to go through what we've gone through physically, has been a heavy, heavy toll. And our team never got the kind of break that I thought it needed to continue to sustain getting through this entire process. On Monday morning, We had 3 separate student athletes come to either me or other members of our staff to indicate maybe some breaks that they would need. Those have now become relatively popular because of the media. But in my conversations, I've had 20 to 30 of those over the course of this season, and my staff has probably had hundreds more. It's an understandable place that these guys are in physically and mentally and what they're going through. For some reason, these particular conversations ended up kind of getting shared with the media, and it became very big news. Big news to the public, big news to yourselves. It wasn't big news to us. It's something that's been going on, in all honesty, since November the 20th when we started practicing, and probably more intensely since we got back after Christmas on December the 26th. Now it's out there. I think a lot of questions are kind of out there about us and our team and our situation, but Monday was really not a lot different than a lot of other days previously. It's been a tough go, and the guys are working. We're still continuing to work forward, not only in these conversations with these young men, but other young men, and getting through our season physically and mentally is something I always really wanted to do. I think at this point, it's very important for all of you to know and the public to know, at no point have I ever forced players to compete. They've always had an ability to opt out. We had a football coach in our league earlier this year who, infamously said opt-outs are not an option, and, later obviously lost his job. I have never compromised their health or well-being throughout this process, outside of the actual process itself, which one could look to and say, hey, I might have some issues here. But within what was in my control, I have never forced a player to play. They have always had the ability to opt out since this journey began. And at no point do I feel like I've crossed that boundary. And that to me is an overall sentiment of this season that I also think is important for people to know. This season has come at a great cost to player and team performance. And there are many times we could have had the option or have had the option to sacrifice that, to maybe practice when nobody's watching, to maybe break a health order, to maybe open up the gym late at night when a kid says, I really, really want to shoot, to maybe, hey, why don't I give these guys a night off, even though they might socially do something we don't like, and COVID could be a possibility. We've never crossed that line. And I know what that was going to lead to. I knew what that was going to lead to with some of their personal individual performances on the court. I knew what that might lead to with regards to our team record and the implications that come with that as well. But at no point have I crossed that. And I'm very comfortable in that space, knowing that professionally and ethically, I have operated this thing in a way that I would expect someone, if my son was on the team, to act. And I believe we've taught some very valuable lessons along the way. We've taught the value of civic duty. We've taught the value of following rules and protocols and laws that even if you don't believe in them, even if they don't align with your political beliefs, you do them anyways because that's your civic duty and that's the right thing to do. Would I have liked to have practiced? Maybe so, but that's not what was given to us. And I think that's a very important lesson for these young men to take with them. No matter how hard it got, coach never did open up the gym, and we never did things that might have allowed us to maybe perform a little bit better individually or possibly as a team. And I think overall, as you look at our journey along the way, I haven't shared a lot of these things. I haven't gotten into them because I've been trying to teach a lot of these lessons to these guys ourselves and behind closed doors. And whatever happens on the court, let's use that as some kind of an outlet. I know it hasn't been what we would want on the court, but at the end of the day, I wanted that to be more of what we talked about on a daily basis than the things I'm kind of reiterating to you now. So I never really wanted to do this, but now that things have kind of gotten out and I'm okay with that. I don't have any issues with it. I don't have any issues with anybody throughout this journey. I've tried to control what I can control. It's been an incredibly consuming experience. It's an up at dawn, up till you fall asleep journey where you're constantly surveying and evaluating and managing people and things and experiences and events. And we're going to continue to do that the rest of the way. At this very point, I'm not aware of our team opting out or several individuals opting out. We had some players voice some concerns that brought us below a Mountain West Conference threshold of eligible players to participate in a game. That's the first time that had happened for us this season. So I voiced that to our athletic director, who eventually voiced that to our league. And this has now kind of turned into a pause that, from my understanding, is perfectly within league rules and the parameters that were set out for us at the beginning of the year. I would have preferred maybe it came a little bit earlier through some of the rescheduling of games that I had asked, but it is here now. I am hopeful that the players that have voiced, different concerns, which again I've dealt with all year long, are ones we can work through, because we've worked through most of the other ones as well. I believe in our players. I believe in our staff. We have always handled ourselves professionally, ethically, properly. I can't look back on any one thing and say, you know what, somebody crossed the line here and did something that you or anyone else evaluating me or our program would say, that's something that you shouldn't have done. The on-court product might be what some would like, including myself and even our team. But from what it actually took to get there, we're very, very satisfied with the things that we've done along the way. And I fully hope and expect that we're going to continue to do those things the rest of the season that we have together. So I want to make sure I got all that out. I'm sure there's a lot of questions. I don't know how many of those that actually answers, but I will open it up to you guys for anything that I didn't elaborate on.
All right, so we can start with questions for Coach at this point. If everyone doesn't talk over each other, we can have you guys kind of chime in whenever you're ready. But if everyone starts talking over each other, then I'll start to regulate it a little bit more.
Hey, Paul, can we, I guess just for starters, before the bigger questions, can you just walk us through how you got down to 6? Because you walked off the court Saturday with 8 available scholarship players. Can you talk about, are these new injuries, or are there injuries that you can elaborate or specifically tell us how you got to 6?
Sure, I'll do the best I can. And let me say that over the course of this season, there's a lot of questions. In a typical year, if Jeff turns his ankle, or Joe hurts his knee, or so-and-so is academically ineligible, or whatever it might be, you can kind of go down the line and be pretty transparent about what's going on. I've been very sensitive to the fact that if your son was on my team right now and everyone wants to know why Jeff may have played or not played last night, or played a lot of minutes or a little minutes, or played well or didn't play well, it's hard for me to sit there and say, well, to be honest with you, I was up till 3 a.m. discussing whether he wants to play anymore. And that might be why he didn't play as much, or why he didn't play up to the standards that he wanted. And I've been relatively vague about injuries because I'm trying to protect these young men as best I can. They have a lot of eyes on them, a lot of questions for people in and around them about what's going on. And I've tried to preserve that confidentiality of our conversations and just preserve their futures to still be open in ways that they can still do things without having the weight of people looking at them or branding them in certain ways because of certain things. And again, that's allowing me to be more cryptic. 3 different players. You're right. We walked off the court with 8 available scholarship players. The Mountain West threshold is 7. In one conversation from a student athlete to another member of our staff was told, academically, we have not been home since school started. I am the first member of my family to be in college, and academics are very important. I think I need some time to focus on my academics. I told that staff member, and again, these conversations go on 30 times a day right now with different players and different people about the different feelings that people are experiencing through this journey. And I told that staff member, look, tell him to reach out to me. If he's confident, we can have a discussion. I immediately referred that player to our academic coordinator. I informed her, hey, can we get with this young man, and can we just see where he's at academically and how we can get him back on track? And if that means he has to miss a few days, if that means he has to miss a few weeks, and if that quite genuinely means he can't play the rest of the season, can you give me your best assessment of it? And those kind of conversations happen quite frequently. I know now it's kind of coming to light, but a lot of kids voice different frustrations or concerns about where they are at. We had another who's had a knee injury. They've been battling all year long. And it is a knee that has just not gotten better. There are concerns about the travel, about a player on his team just getting hurt, and him wondering, is all this quite worth it? Is all this worth me going out every day, and maybe this potentially being something worse? So again, get with the athletic trainer. Let's put a medical plan in place. I talk with the trainer. How long might he need, or what can we put in place in order for him to kind of get back to the court? And then a third player, the only one that physically came to me, outlining a personal situation to me and from a mental health perspective saying, Coach, I need a few days right now to deal with this situation. And me saying, yes, please go take care of that. So on Monday morning, when I had my personal conversation with a player and other staff members are coming to me with conversations they have, I informed Eddie that, look, we have fallen kind of below the threshold. I don't know exactly what I'm telling you other than that right now. Can you give me a little bit of time to continue to flesh this out and see where this happens to take us? We've been at this situation before, again, not publicly to you guys, but we've been in it at different ways at different times where players or groups of players are voicing concerns about things. And usually we've had very productive conversations that have allowed us to move forward and progress and continue to kind of get the train back on the tracks and going in the right direction. And I told Eddie then, no different than I'm telling you now, I'm hopeful that we'll still be able to do that and have conversations and get kids in their own individual situations back to a place where they can compete. And if for whatever reason they can't and they can't rejoin, that's totally okay. We have never, and I have never forced a player to have to compete after voicing concerns of some kind to me or a member of our staff.
Well, where are we now? Is obviously you're not playing San Diego State games. Is the intent to play next week, or is it 1 week off? Like, where are you now as far as your plan? Because you've referred quite a few times to the rest of the season finishing up.
Yeah. The one thing I've learned in this journey, Jeff, is it's really hard to plan. We're still planning where the Wyoming game is going to be. It's been really hard to sit down this year and say, this is what we're going to do Monday, this is what we're going to do Tuesday, this is what we're going to do Wednesday, and so on, and give a schedule and give a calendar and get some normalcy to our lives and our schedule. So I can't sit here and say 100% we are going to be in this next game or in the game after that, in the game of that. I can tell you our intent is to play at Colorado State, and I'm hopeful that these next few days will allow us time to recalibrate ourselves, get back above the threshold, get maybe some walk-ons that haven't been a part of our team for a while back in shape physically and mentally to where they could compete on a basketball court, and then finish the season as best we possibly can. But as I just said, I can't guarantee really even tomorrow at this point. It's just the way this journey has been.
Coach, when you say some walk-ons ready, are you anticipating that some of your scholarship guys won't come back?
No, I'm not anticipating that. I wouldn't lean towards that. But again, this day in and day out, it's hard to typically plan. And even if for some reason they aren't back on a timeline that meets Colorado State, we want to be able to field the basketball team. And, us getting down to the 5 scholarship players, unfortunately, we didn't have 4 or 5 other or 2 or 3 other walk-ons that were physically ready to compete, because when school started, however many weeks ago, I made the choice to leave them back so that they could focus on their studies.
Paul, the stories that came out today or yesterday talked about 7 scholarship players were necessary to play. Is that a league rule then? And if so, how would you turn the walk-ons into scholarship players in time to get them eligible to play?
Yeah, so my understanding of the rule is it is 7 scholarship players. If you are below that, it is still your choice to play if you elected to do so. So even if for some reason we don't quite get back to 7, if we can scholarship, to me, if we can at least get some walk-on players physically ready to play, where putting them out there isn't at their a detriment to their physical well-being, then I think we would be at enough of a number to continue to compete. And then if scholarship players chose to kind of rejoin at a later date and get us back up, then we could. And we do have some physical injuries. We do have some just physical things that have come about unexpectedly that have kind of put us in this threshold area that if they come back, obviously we're kind of back in the clear, independent of whatever maybe COVID-related potential breaks people are asking for.
Coach, my name is Ron Burke. I'm new to KOAT television. It's nice to meet you virtually for the first time, and I certainly wish you well through this. What can you say about the players who are able to play, who do want to play, and now potentially, at least in the short term, they're missing out on at least some of that opportunity? And I would imagine they have to be thinking long term. Maybe they'll miss out on much more going forward.
Yes, I had a great 4 of them, came to me at practice on Monday, and 4 scholarship players, and said, Coach, just give us a few days. We'll talk to these guys. We're good. What happens if we don't play San Diego State? And my understanding from the rule is the games would get postponed and rescheduled the way every other COVID-related kind of cancellation is gone, and we would actively try to reschedule those games. And they felt as though, look, if you can reschedule those games and we can just have a few days here to recalibrate and get some of these guys back around mentally, that's a viable alternative for us. Because I didn't want to go forward without kind of getting a blessing from the guys. And, the sacrifices these guys have made, I can't even quite tell you what it's like to live in this bubble. And the sacrifices that the guys that are still going have done to get to this point. I mean, to not have a positive test in February is exceptional. And, McWatch Malwatch won't see his girlfriend until she hands over a negative test, and just that kind of discipline and commitment that they have embodied, it makes me proud. And it makes me proud to know that these guys have not brought their political or ideological values into this and said, Coach, if this is the rules and these are the standards and this is what you say, we're going to do it. And kind of teaching them that. I keep saying civic duty is important to me, and I'm glad and I'm happy. So following their lead, I should say, is important to me as well. And they were definitely a part of this decision to postpone or reschedule these games, hopefully, and then finish the rest of the way.
Coach, Mark Ziegler here in San Diego. You're saying postpone. The league was very adamant today in its release. It said canceled. San Diego State put out a release that said the game's been canceled. The second graph said they will not be rescheduled. What's the discrepancy here? I'm a little bit confused.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of discrepancy over how to define it. My explanation to everybody is, tomorrow's not guaranteed. So I realize San Diego State has a schedule right now, and we tentatively have a schedule right now. But I think if we've learned anything from this process, that scheduling is pretty fluid. The only reason we can't reschedule it is because they've already had to reschedule others. So to, eliminate the ability to play down the road, I don't necessarily think is prudent, given the fact that our game against whomever might get canceled, and they might have a game get canceled, and there is an opening. Would we want to totally preclude the ability of us to play again if for some reason that situation arises? I realize right this very minute there might not be a convenient window, but if at some point one does arise, why would we eliminate that possibility if what we're saying this season is about is to give these kids opportunities to play and compete and enjoy the game they love? And it comes a time where both of us feel like that could be accomplished. I wouldn't want to just shut that door. That was my explanation on why I didn't agree with just outwardly saying these games will never take place.
And if I'm go ahead.
I just wanted to know, will this week be sufficient, the kind of rest you're talking about your players needing?
Yeah, I hope so. Today's our first day off. I told everyone today is off. We came to practice Monday with a very limited group. We met again yesterday, talked a lot about just this situation. And again, these conversations we've had all year long. It was the first time I probably had to have a conversation with, hey, things are getting shared with people outside of our organization. You just have to be a little bit careful. And I know they're kids, and I know they'll vent. And we vent. We vent as adults at times about what our personal situation, our family situation, our employment situation. And I think maybe just some kids got together and vented a little bit, and it got communicated, and eventually in translation, it turns into our team is opting out. And we laughed. I said, guys, people think we're opting out, and there's some laughter in the room. It was like, let's focus on our academics, because we're very behind right now academically, being on the road so much. That was yesterday. Today is a mental day, and I'm hopeful as we kind of start to regroup here over the next few days, I'll have a better answer for that. And I'm hopeful that we'll still be able to compete against Colorado State. We intend to, and get the right people to go into that trip. If for some reason, unbeknownst to me right this very minute, things, snowball in another direction and we need a larger break, then that might be something that I would go through. Right now, like I said, I do not want any player to ever feel like I have forced them or that opt-outs are not an option or anything of that nature. I've been very open about, look, I'm not saying this journey is the greatest, but it's still the journey. And you've got to be at peace with that the way I've come to be at peace with it.
But was there a moment, a threshold moment, where it started out we want an opportunity to play, and then it was we just need to practice. We can't play because we're getting such a late start, and it went from and I understand that everything that's going on best we can without being in it. Where was there a moment where it went from we need more practice, we need more opportunity to wow, it's too much, we need a break?
December 26th. I think if anyone in our program was honest, the coming back on New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve from Boise, you played a late game on the 23rd. You see all these other breaks happening. You see your peers in the women's program, everyone's getting to go home for Christmas. You see Duke opting out. You see all these things and all these coaches were saying, hey, we want to give our kids a little bit of a break here at Christmas. And for me to say, hey, we're all getting back on the bus to Lubbock on the 26th was probably our first real moment of guys outwardly voicing, the things that are getting voiced to the public now. So I'd say from December 26th on, we've been managing each individual going through that journey themselves. And there's good days and there's bad days. And there's physical wear downs. There's mental wear downs. There's this group of guys feels a certain way. And, we've just been managing it the whole way. And I don't say all this now other than it's come to light. It was nothing ever I wanted to share publicly. I wanted to stick to basketball, keep these guys thinking about basketball so that we could just kind of compete the season. Unfortunately, there are some people, I guess, either around the people in our program or maybe in our program that wanted to share more. And that's probably a sign of, I maybe need to be a little bit more open and honest about maybe some things that are going on so we can all maybe be and feel a little bit more comfortable about the situation. And maybe they didn't think I was either defending the situation enough or defending them enough about what they're going through and always making it about basketball clearly became tough. And so for me, I guess it's about trying to make the players feel confident and comfortable to go through it. But December 26th was, in my estimation, the first time I noticed kind of some brushback on guys not being, 100% all in, coach. We'll go wherever, whenever.
Well, you said the three players that left Monday, you said only one of them came directly to you. How confident are you that the other two who didn't come directly to you would rejoin the team eventually?
I don't know how to, I hate airing dirty laundry. That's not what I'm trying to do. What happened on Monday has happened 100 other times this year. And this just one happened to be shared with members of the media. And now it kind of became public information. But I'm going to say 20 to 30 times a player said, Coach, I want to talk to you. I don't know if I can do this right now. And here's my reasons why. And we worked through that situation together. When I said yesterday, hey, we're having a team meeting at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and I send that out to the group and the whole team shows up to the meeting, I am not going to walk away from that meeting thinking that Mark or anybody else doesn't want to be on the team right now. They might be going through some things that they're trying to navigate through and understand and process what this basketball season and team means within that. But I don't walk away from having a team meeting and having everybody show and me saying things and allowing them to speak as anyone specifically on this team right now opting out. I know in the media right now it might look that way or feel that way, but what happened on Monday has happened 100 other times in different ways throughout the course of this season.
I guess I misunderstood. I thought you said two of the guys you had not spoken with personally.
Yes, and I'm saying that's happened many other times this year. Jeff Symbiette is an assistant coach, and he comes and sits down and says, hey, coach, just a heads up, I just met with so-and-so, and he's really having troubles with this right now. And then whomever, so all the players have not always just walked into my office and said, Coach, I'm really struggling mentally. I'm sick of my roommate. I'm this, I'm that, whatever. They've come to people in different ways that they feel comfortable with and comfortable with sharing their journey.
The the
All right,
whole
let's
team
move on
was
from that
active.
question. Mark, can we go ahead and move on to the next question? We've got a lot of people to get through and not a whole lot of time.
Thanks.
So obviously this has been a tough season. You've talked about that, but another reoccurring theme has been effort on the court. And I'm just at this moment now where you're at. Do you kind of feel, I don't want to say lost the team, but I'm trying to say like effort has been a big deal. And at this point, do you feel like their buy-in isn't where it should be? And I mean, how are you do you think you're handling it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, all we can go off is the last game. And I think there's been a lot of points along the way, what you're saying, we start to think as coaches, like, how are they going to be? And for the most part, they've responded. I think even the Fresno trip, to come back after San Jose, which obviously is not the kind of result anybody wants, and to come out off that trip with that amount of games and that amount of days, you'd think, well, how do we pick it back up? But we do, and we out and competed. Again, not what we want. And we have more of these stretches, and this was in the middle of one. I think we finished the season with 4 games in 7 days. When I looked at this calendar, it's part of the reason I kind of reached out going, guys, if we could just get a little bit of some freedom here to give the guys a little bit of a break, I think maybe the on-court product could have been a little bit better. But at this point right now, I feel as though the effort for the most part has been as good as we can expect, and I'm hopeful that it will remain that way the rest of the season. I don't feel like anyone has quit on this team or quit on the scenario. I think they might have bad days. I think they might have bad moments like we all have through this. But I'm hopeful, like I said, that I had the whole team in a meeting yesterday, and I'm hopeful we'll get as many guys as possible to the game at Colorado State and just crank it out there and give it our best shot.
Coach, I guess I'm a little bit confused on why exactly you're not playing these games. Is it because you drop below that 7 and you physically can't play? Or is it because you don't want to right now, you feel like the team needs a break?
Yeah, so from my understanding, we went below the threshold. My understanding of the rule is between COVID or injury-related purposes, if you drop below 7, there is not a requirement to play. So I basically threw that up the flagpole to say, look, can we postpone or reschedule these games given the fact that we are below the threshold? We would love to play in them at some point along the way if we can find a mutual date. And I get right now the reciprocation of that is, well, we don't have any dates, but if one becomes available, we'd love to do it. We obviously have our bye week came in the last week of the season for some reason, so we have plenty of room to either move another game to play San Diego State at a different time. And that was kind of our understanding. That was my players' understanding that we could. When it got framed back that, well, maybe this would get canceled, I know it's late. I said, well, look, if I have to go back to my team and say, look, this game might not actually get made up, do we get on the bus with 5 scholarship guys and just go play? I never had a chance to have that conversation with my staff or my team, knowing that it would get canceled. Might have had a different impetus on the front end, but on the front end, we were all under the understanding that due to the Mountain West rule, we could postpone the game, no different than everybody else around the country was postponing games. When Villanova and St. John's postponed the game, it was Jay Wright calling Mike Anderson saying, hey, I think I need a few days. My players need a break. Can we reschedule this? Sure. I didn't know that, right now this could get construed in the way that it has.
And last thing from me, playing devil's advocate, some people are going to look at this and say, you're 1-11. San Diego State just beat 4 teams by 27 plus in each game. You're a little bit undermanned. You could be looking at some pretty wide margins here. This is an easy way to get out of this for you guys. What's your response to people who think that way?
Probably what I said at the beginning. If I was really about that, we would have practiced. We would have opened up the gym. We would have done a lot of things over the course of the year where we had a chance to ethically skate a little bit, or even I say morally, probably blur some lines, and we've never done it. We've never violated the health order. We've never got COVID. We've never done anything because I feel as though we have handled this thing professionally and responsibly. And I think there's really no point in doing that all along the way. And then now at this point, kind of allude to what you're saying. And I understand what you're saying, but from what we've been through this whole period, trust me, that I don't know if the opponent on Wednesday had anything to do with it. I believe it was just the kind of culmination of a lot of circumstances, and unfortunately, people sharing stuff with the media as well.
All All right, as we move towards wrapping up, are there a couple people that haven't asked any questions yet that have some things they'd like to have answered?
I have one. Coach, you talked a lot about best interest of the players, what the players need. And now that you guys are on this break, are you allowing your staff to take a proper break, a mental break, a day, a half day to breathe from the situation, or you guys just power through this?
We are, but I don't say that other than that's our job right now. These kids, I have a duty of care to these young men. And for me to go and pick up my golf clubs today, I just don't think is the responsible thing to do. It's a very consuming experience. I responded to Christmas text messages about a week ago, just from the standpoint, this is a nonstop managing these young men. And if any of your sons or family members were on this team, I would not want you to call me and say that I have not done a proper job educating them, teaching them, holding whatever the experience is, managing it in the most professional, ethical way I can, and have taught them the right values that they can take forward in life. So unfortunately, I would like the break, but I just don't think it's right now. I think whenever this winds down, whenever this kind of comes to a close and there's some time for that, I will. But when you're in this thing day in and day out, you just don't pick your head up for air. You're constantly trying to manage the situation and get everybody through the day and improving and growing in whatever way that's available to you in those moments.
Paul, I want to make sure and give you the opportunity to be clear. Are you disputing the media reports? I know there were really only 2 media reports that said this, and I was one of them. So are you disputing that some players are considering opting out and that maybe some of the conversations you referenced several times that these conversations have happened throughout the year? In your response or in your staff's response to those players, has it ever been about the way they can opt out and that that's an option, and maybe those players took that as you guys encouraging them to opt out? Are you disputing the reporting?
I am not disputing the basics of the reporting. I think it's probably the nuance of it. Do players on our team think about opting out? I'm sure they have, and I'm sure they will. And I think that goes on at every single program in the country. I believe that maybe some thoughts of players considering opting out were probably shared in ways that maybe was not totally accurate of how they genuinely felt. Because with me in front of our team, given the option to opt out, no one has done that. So breaks, yes. Situations that they need space or accommodations or resources for, yes. But I have had no player come to me or have a conversation with me since Fresno State that they were opting out of the season, and I either talked them out of it, into it, or anything of that nature.
Hey, Paul,
Good.
hindsight
Two more
being,
questions. Two more questions, and then we'll wrap it up.
hindsight being 2020, if you could go back, knowing now what you could have known back in October, what would you have done differently to get through the season? And then on top of that, is it worth it to have gone what you guys have gone through this season?
To the second one, I see how people can look at it and say it's not worth it. I do genuinely believe in the long run, the things that we have been able to teach them and show them are life lessons they would not have gotten if they did not go through this experience. And I do believe in the times that we're living in right now, politically, racially, socially, that we've taught some incredible lessons to them about what I would hope is the way we would all want our young kids to act going forward, and the way we would approach situations that in other instances are getting treated much differently. And even though this person or this situation is acting that way, we're not going to act that way. We're going to do what's right. And that's something that I would want my son to be taught if he was on an actual team somewhere. So yes, I think we can look at it in a particular instance and go, oh, was this really worth it? But I think when we look at life lessons and big picture and where these kids up 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, and they go back to their years with Lobo basketball, I'm hopeful that they can say, they can be better in whatever avenues they're in, as opposed to seeing me or us skirting the rules, doing something different, or a scenario whereby we even force something on them that wouldn't be something we would want our young children to embody. First one was, you had something on the front end, but I forgot.
One more question. Before Mark, is there anybody else that has a question? Because Mark's asked a few today.
Two.
All right, Mark Smith, last question.
Paul, how much has it taken out on you personally with a lot of pressure out there from fans? Are you feeling pressure? Do you feel confident that you'll be back as coach next year when all this is said and done?
You know, that was something I had to be at peace with a long time ago when this season started and we were kind of faced with what we were faced with. I had to kind of decide, is this going to be not even necessarily about my personal career, but even some of our individual players' careers? Are they going to have the type of seasons that are going to engender confidence or future success or, development that would be in their best interests and mine as well, just professionally in my career? And what is this going to mean about where it could go? And you had to make those decisions in those moments. And if I wanted to practice, if I wanted to do certain things that I probably could have gotten away with, we could have done those things. But I just couldn't quite do that. I felt a responsibility to these young men. I felt a responsibility to UNM. I felt a responsibility to the high school kids out there that want to play sports, to the other people here at UNM. I just felt a responsibility that people can judge me or this season in any way they want, but they couldn't judge it on our values. They couldn't judge it on our responsibility, not only to ourselves, but to other people, and just carrying ourselves the right way. And I feel like we've done that. It may not always come out perfectly to you guys, but I hold my head high and put my head on the pillow, feeling as though whatever questions you're about to come up with, I accepted those, and I knew those were coming. And if I was worried about those, I wouldn't have acted this way along the way.
Are you confident you'll be back next year?
That is not my decision.
All right, Coach, is there anything else you want to wrap up with? I think you kind of just did a nice little wrap up there, but if there's anything else that you'd like to finish with, now's the chance.
I'm great. I think I might have missed one of Will's. I got going there. If I missed something, I can answer it. But if not, I think I've explained where I'm at.
It's just what would you have done differently? Knowing now what you could have known back in October.
Man, we have 100 of those. I think the impetus probably, if I was to be more forceful on the rescheduling of the Boise State games, to me, and creating a break around Christmas the way pretty much everybody else got, I think that stress of no Christmas break at that time was a lot. And it just started to kind of compound from there. That to me was our first real stress point that triggered a lot of other things to maybe feel more impactful than they had to be. But that being said, I don't want to sit here and say we're here because of that, and nor am I pointing the finger at anybody. We've taken every decision, looked at all the information, and tried to make the best call we could at the time. But if I think of one off the top of my head, that would be it.